creativity and their everyday life and so on. So when you're making public policy around something like the performing arts, you've got to tread delicately. How do you, for example, regulate without interfering, with the ability of people to express themselves freely? So when you are in the position of making public policy in an area like this, that's something that you have to look at very, very closely. Because my belief is that people who are doing in the performing arts know what they're doing. They know what they want. They have an idea, very, very many ideas about where they want to go. What is necessary is a structured environment that will sustain and promote their activities. And so I can only see Mr. Divine here from the ministry, but it's very important for people who are involved in policy making to look at that. And I won't say, even though public policy is governmental and part of the state, I think that we need to look at policy, whether we are running, educational institutions, or whether we're running financial, institutions. I mean, if you are a bank, what kind of policy would you have that will support the performing arts? So sometimes we're looking at people in government, but let's remember that policy is being made in different kinds of institutions across the board. And these institutions, there should be a coordinated a number of policies that create a certain ecosystem in which the performers now feel comfortable and supported and so on. So I think that that's another point that I would like to make with regard to the making of policy. Now, the issue of culture being both a vehicle for development and an outcome of development is extremely important in this regard. So if you have an aspect of culture, which is performing arts, how do we optimize its capacity to be an outcome, an outcome of development, as well as a vehicle for development? We were looking at a bit of concert party before we started, and if anybody was paying attention, they were joking around, but they were talking about a number of things. I think if you listen to Santo, he said that because he's joking, it's possible for him to say all kinds of things. I mean, I couldn't get away with that, but he was making a point. They were making a point about how dirty, our gutters and so on are, and who is leading. They are cutting down the forests, and who is offering the leader. All of that was happening while we were sitting here waiting for this thing to start. So there is a way in which the people who are in performing arts, can influence policy, in a certain way, and people who are making policy ought to listen to them, because that then becomes an input into policy making. Now, I want to say that before we commercialize our performing arts, we should learn about them. And I will probably make this point in many different ways, because I think that many of us don't know enough about the performing arts within the context of our societies. And we're getting away with that. And if we sat down here and had a little bit of a lesson, for example, about, okay, if there's a naming ceremony, what happens and what happens and what happens, you see the situation that will occur on this floor today. When there are funerals, many of the quarrels are about, what is done and so on. And I'm making that point because if you're writing a play, or if you're doing a song, or, if you are a costumier or whatever it is, in order for you to take off on your creativity, you ought to know about what the basics are. And so for me, it's extremely important, because otherwise we get derailed. We get into a situation where our models are from elsewhere. Somebody else has done their research, and we are cottoning on to that. And they are coming to do the research here as well, and we're chasing them to find out about ourselves. Those kinds of things need to stop. And so it's very, very important for us to ensure that we make policies that encourage the collection of data. And I can't agree with you more that than that one of the biggest issues in policy making at the moment is what is there on the ground. Now, for that reason, I would like to make the point that certain institutions have been established. For example, the Centers for National Culture of the National Commission on Culture, one of their roles, it used to be possible for you to go to the center and they will tell you that there are 200 amateur dance groups in this district or in this region, and they'll tell you who the best singer of Akpalu or something is. They knew all about it. Where is that information? What has happened? We have starved them of resources and they are unable to perform those roles. But those institutions exist. And I think that one of the things that we need to do is to strengthen existing institutions, and also to look at the rules and regulations and the laws that we already have, and try to make sure that they are properly coordinated. We have, and this is not just in our sector, I'm sorry, but all throughout our country, we are making one policy and another policy cancelling it, and we're making one law and another law cancelling. Something has to happen, in that area. So I'm not really saying let's do a whole bunch of new things. I'm saying let's reinforce the things that we already have and support them and strengthen them so that we can get this framework going. Now, so the public policy framework should provide institutional support. It should project the performing arts in many different ways. So there should be a national platform which, for example, goes international, so that when the Ghana Tourism Authority or whatever is going somewhere for some kind of a fair, it's clear that the performing arts of Ghana are going along with it, and therefore, projecting our country. Of course, there should be regulation, and I've made my point about what kind of regulation, but we need to have regulation, a regulatory framework. We need to have a situation where we are brokering the relationship between performers and, say, financiers, for example. What is the kind of framework that we can have to do that? And then we need to ensure that we are avoiding the erasure of our culture. Now, when people are, when you talk about the industry, you are looking for profit and so on. It is the government that needs to do the things that are not so sexy. It's the government that needs to spend the money on promoting little-known artists, for example, and so on. The government needs to be able to ensure that, say, artists who are, who have are disabled or something, you need to do that kind of projection. You need to project certain forms of arts that people are not going to pay top dollar for, but people need to know about. So that's the sort of thing that the government needs to promote, and it needs to be done by policy. So let me say that in reclaiming our stories, or in avoiding erasure, or in making sure that our airwaves are not just full of performance styles and types from other parts of the world, and so on. All of those things the state has to do in supporting the education and so on of artists. So I'm coming, my conclusion then is this, that although the state can be overbearing. It still needs to provide the framework so that we can hang our ecosystem of culture and in this case, performing arts on it. There's got to be a one-stop shop you can go to find out information, to get yourself set up. There ought to be supportive, our institutions have got to be, and people in those institutions have got to be trained in such a way that they support, the performing arts. And we have to make sure, finally, that we don't exploit our traditional culture, but rather we use our ability to earn money to make sure that not only are the individuals who are the stars or whatever are making money, but where you get your source material from should also benefit. And that's the sort of thing that, the government must do. But I need to stop here, so thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor A.C. Sutherland. All right, tech team, do we have Mr. Sapong online? We do. Mr. Sapong, can you hear me? Mr. Sapong, can you hear me? Should I come back to you later? I should come back to you later. Okay, all right. In that case, Dr. Odoy, the floor is yours. A round of applause for Dr. Odoy, please.
Thank you very much, Apioko. Good evening. It's a real pleasure to be here this evening. I don't know how Nana Fredua managed to get me here, seated here this evening. He's my brother's brother, so I'd oblige him anytime. He asked me to tell you my story, and because I think he knows how much I want Ghanaian creativity to be out there, and to just emphasize how determined we are to make sure we get up there with everybody else. I always say that music is a potent way of communicating. And imagine a 5-month-old baby just sitting up. You play a song, next thing you know, the baby is bopping, and you can tell that music is powerful. Music can be therapy. It can be a way of healing. I always wanted to be a doctor, without doubt. But I think my love of music was stronger than that. And as time went on, I was a DJ in secondary school. I was a DJ in university. And I became a part nightclub owner before I became a doctor. Then when I became a doctor, I found out that managing the two was difficult. And it was very clear which way, where I had to put my attention, and that's what I did for quite a while. Within that time, we were part of various groups that brought in several acts, several international artists like Shabba Ranks, Public Enemy, Jermaine Jackson, and I found I enjoyed it. When I had the time, I'd put that in. My main focus was on jazz, though. At that time, university days and just after university. And I remember a colleague and I, Dr. Niboni Andrews, we did a program on Joy FM in May '95. We're celebrating the music and the birthday of Miles Davis. And we had a lovely afternoon presenting the music of Miles Davis to the people of Accra. And I'm sure it went beyond, but like I said, it was thoroughly enjoyable. But a few days later, I got a message. And the message was from no other than the great, 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 and late Kofi Ganaba. Who is Miles Davis? I was there with him, and my birthday is in May. And we forgot about him. So that day I got that message. I said, whoa, we have great people here we overlook all the time. Let's make this a Ghanaian thing. And so since then, we've looked at seeing how we can nurture, bring up Ghanaian talent. And I sit here wearing two hats. One is as the director of Plus 233 Jazz Bar and Grill. The other is as the president of the Ghana Club. The Ghana Club is a social club which offers members and the public ways and means of developing themselves. We've had several public, open, free events like musical concerts, Afro-classical music nights, book launches, art exhibitions, and even design exhibitions, anything that will project Ghanaian product. So we've been honored to have Fifi Flawless play at both venues, both places, and we will continue to do this as we go along. Now, the important thing really is that one operates from a certain basis, and we've always used culture and the performing arts as a cultural pillar. The performing arts reflect the heart of our cultural identity, telling the story of who we are as Ghanaians and Africans. And so we believe that public policy should reflect the importance of preserving, promoting, and advancing this cultural heritage. And this is something we will continue to do as Ghanaians and as part of the group, or part, wanting to bring out the best in the creative industry in this country. I remember on one film night, I think it was Ogwaman, which was a film about Cape Coast. There were sections where we had Prof. Sutherland Addy speaking Fanti. And under the Fanti, as she was speaking, there were English subtitles. That night, I realized what a romantic language Fanti was. Much, much more romantic than English. But it took, I mean, you hear it all the time, but there you are watching her speak in Fanti and seeing the subtitles in English. And I thought that was fantastic. It's something Oliver can look at and, you know, promote. Let's have some more Ghanaian films. And the National Theatre has always been a home. Way back in the early 2000s, we'd come watch the music shows there. We've had several international events there. And it is a place where we think its potential is just amazing. You've got all the different rooms, the space, the amphitheater, you know, training, shows, teaching, and really, if there's any way we can help push the agenda to make it 100% functional, please let us know, and we appeal that this happens. As being part of this deep wish to make Ghana very visible creatively. This afternoon, I went again looking for data because I said we should tell the Nigerian story, but Kwame has. And truth be told, I also couldn't find any data on the creative industry and its impact on the economy and society. So we have work to do. And we will continue to do so. We'll just urge government to help build this up. I know sometimes being creative means you speak your mind. And we encourage that creativity. It's the only way to bring out what is in you, but a lot of that is beautiful. And we just ask if we could have more help in the years to come for all in the industry, not just the creatives themselves, but venues, academia, and all those involved. So I'll end by saying, let's keep it up. Let's not lose hope. Let's rather apply all we have to getting a better industry. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Adrian Ojoy. Felt the passion there, did you? Did you feel the passion? Wonderful. Is Mr. Sapong ready now? Do we have him on? Tech team. Are we ready? We're ready. Okay. Mr. Sapong, good evening. Can you hear me? Seems like there's a bit of feedback there. Okay, we'll come back to him. So a round of applause for our panelists who have spoken so far. We'll try to get Mr. Joseph Sapong on when we can. But a lot has been said, a whole lot. And very shortly, I'm going to be involving you, the audience, in the conversation. I hope you've been taking notes. It's actually a lecture hall where you have to take notes. You just may write an exam. Are you ready for that? Oh, are you ready for that? They are not. They are not. All right, so I just want to touch on a few things that each of you has said before we go to the audience. And Kwame, you started with the numbers. And you showed us that wonderful graph. And I'm going to tie it very quickly to something that Prof said. The fact that, yes, even when we do see the numbers, it's people who have done it for us. And so it's not as deep as it should be. It's not what we need it to be. And it's precious little. Because if somebody is coming in to do any kind of research for you, it's not for your benefit. They need it for their benefit, for whatever project they are working on. And so the numbers are missing. I mean, there are numerous World Bank reports. We can find Africa in general in there. And then, of course, you can find the Nigerian examples, the Kenyan examples, South Africa. Even now, Rwanda is popping up a bit. But Ghana is not there. So, Kwame, I want to find out from you. You have been in the film industry for a very long time. And when you are looking to make a film, a Ghanaian film, that can traverse borders, how do you find your numbers? What kind of data guides you? Because yes, there's the art, but then, as Prof mentioned, again, I'll reference that, beyond the art, we need to go into the commercialization. So after you've done all your research, you understand the tradition from which we're coming, you're making sure that the cultural aspects, we are not desecrating them, but we are elevating them. You've done all that. You want people to watch your film, right? Because you've invested in it. What numbers do you use? How does that work for you?
Okay, thank you, Afiako. I like case studies. I tend to be a practical man, so I'll use a current project that we're doing. I was just telling Uncle Fraser and Co. It's called Omogana. You know, last year was the 40th anniversary of the expulsions of Ghanaians from Nigeria, 83. I don't know, those of you who are old enough will know, okay? 2 million West Africans were expelled from Nigeria in 83, of which 1 million were Ghanaians. And at that time, I think our population was like 10 million, so that was like 10% of population coming back. It was a very tumultuous time. So last year was the 40th anniversary, and I attended a series of seminars and talks that was organized by a close friend of ours, Oliver and I, you know. And as we were sitting there, then we said, why don't we do a documentary? So I'm going to segue. I'm going to use that to answer your question. So for me, you don't do the film and then after say, well, I'm going to sell it to. The moment you get the idea, you have to start thinking the two must go together. The creativity and the commerce must go together and meet at a certain point. You don't finish and say, well, I'm going to sell it. You lost it. Okay. So we said, so this is a story that traverses Ghana, Nigeria, it moves through Benin and so on. And then there's a bigger story of migration, right? You know, these days migration is very topical. If any of you watched yesterday of Donald Trump and Kamala Harris and the cats and the dogs, you know that migration is very topical.
Anyone catch that last night? You didn't catch the debate? Okay. I mean, apparently immigrants are eating dogs and cats in America, according to Donald Trump. So.
Yeah. So, but for us, that meant that there's a market. So it's a topical issue. So we could do a documentary film which would use the 83 expulsions as a fulcrum, because those were very tumultuous times, very emotive and so on. You know, the stories are, there are lots of plus and minuses from Nigeria to Ghana. So it means that the potential market will be Ghana, Nigeria, 30-something million plus 200-something million. That's a big one. And then there's a bigger migration story. So we've done the movie, and just a few weeks ago I went to Nigeria. Now we have a co-producer. So we're going to do some scenes in Nigeria, because although the government of Nigeria at that time, led by Shehu Shagari, had caused the expulsions, because there was a very deep bond between the Ghanaians and Nigerians there. Some of the stories were like, because we interviewed the returnees to do have a lot of research to do this. And some of the very poignant, and the one that was very deep that we are going to reenact in Nigeria was that, that's where the Ghana must go back in. Because at that time, they were given 2 weeks, so you had to carry whatever you can and move. So they left lots of their possessions over there. And some of them say, 2 or 3 years later, they have a Nigerian friend come and say, I brought your stuff. You understand? So we use that story to talk about the bigger migration, because research has shown migration is actually a good thing for both countries, those where you are living, and if it's done well, if it's done from knowledge.
If you can hear me, kindly
the
test
UN
in the
has
chat
something called
section.
Global Compact for migration. So we did all this research, and now you see I'm talking about UN and the migration. So then it means that this film will potentially have global resonance. So, so the numbers are there, Ghana, Nigeria, and so on. The creativity has come, that it is topical.
William, can you hear me?
So if you tie all of that together and you're able to
If you can hear me, kindly
put in some very
send me a
good
message.
production values, then chances are we'll make a blockbuster. So look out for that soon. So I don't know whether that answers your question.
It does. It does. And I asked this question because I knew you would have a great answer for it. Now, unfortunately, not every creative has access to the skill set that you have. Even the business acumen, because you're a businessman as well. So the business acumen to even merge the commerce with the creativity as you're creating the work. Not every creative has that. Not every performing artist has that. And that's where policy will come in. So I'm going to segue to Prof. AC, because Prof, you spoke a lot about the fact that we do have institutions, but we've allowed them to go to sleep. So you, again, have been in this space for so many years. You've seen them come and go. You've seen the good, the bad, and ugly. What can we do now, to make sure that, one, we revive the vitality of, these institutions that exist, and then now there are new ones. We are talking about the Creative Arts Agency. We have the National Film Authority. Of course, we have a whole ministry of tourism, arts, and culture as well. And that has happened within the last 10, 11 years or so. So what do we need to do to make sure that we can get these things up and running?
I think that I started to point in that direction. Let's take from what you just said. If there were a desk at the National Commission on Culture or at the film, what is it called? National Film Authority, where you go and you can find out how many film festivals are there around the world which are friendly to African films that you can show your films at. What institutions in different parts of the world will be willing to buy, a film like that, and so on. The information hubs are extremely important, and it actually doesn't take too much to set up an information hub. Have one or two knowledgeable, young people who can really surf, and find out what's going on. So I think we need to start from small things. We need to be able to staff our institutions. I remember that there was, with the National Commission on Culture, there was actually a core of cultural officers that were being trained, so that you would do an exam, or an interview and go from one position to the other within the cultural sphere. So we were cultivating, a core of people whose job was to work within the cultural sector. Those kinds of things we need to come back to. I also believe that in terms of mainstreaming these, culture within the the national economic, structure, we need to make sure that we can get government to answer for, what have you spent in culture this year, whether you are in, it's trade or it's any other sector. we need to be able to, they need to be able to demonstrate that they have put a budget line and spent money in the area of culture. So in terms of the performing arts, for example, you have a situation in which, as I said, we're trying to have our various festivals, right, that happen in each district and so on. These festivals need not be taken lightly. I see a situation in which traditional leaders are trying, for example, to set, so you have a new Kente festival that I think it's, how many years old? Maybe 10?
About 10 years.
Yes, in the Volta region. Is it Agotime?
Yes,
Yes.
Agotime.
Okay, so I mean, those examples need to be highlighted. That is what people are already doing, needs to be highlighted and needs to be supported. So if they come, then to the corporate sector and say, please support this, support us, let's do that. I keep going down from government into discrete areas where people have access to disposable funding, and let's see if we can't, give that kind of support to activate, the sector. So the point I'm really making is that we needn't wait for that huge, sum of money or that support that we get from the World Bank or whatever it is that we are looking for. Let's try and do several things within several institutions, and then it will begin to come together. But the thing that we mustn't do is to make, rules and regulations and laws and so on that cancel each other out. I mean, it's freaking me out, I'm sorry, but it's really something that's bothering me quite a bit. And that just sort of makes everybody's efforts almost useless. Yeah.
Thank you, Prof. Kwame, I think you wanted to say something.
Yeah,
we have Joseph ready, so
okay.
very briefly.
Yeah, just briefly, just to add a few things to what, because I think your question was basically about capacity building, right? I don't know whether Calvin can later put out policy interventions that I mentioned, but one of the key ones is teaching capacity building and teaching entrepreneurship. So you don't only teach the technical skills, for the performing arts, but business, there must be business integration, because it's very, very key. And when you're talking about policy, it's true, it should be top down, bottom up as well. I mean, it's true that government controls everything, but in a democracy, individuals, entities, corporates, and so on can also exist. And I always tell people what we don't do very well is we don't collaborate. See, now I'm going to Nigeria, I'm going to look for a collaborator. But I always tell people, you may have the story, you may have the equipment, you may have the money, you may have the reach, and 4 or 5 people come together locally, and they can do something, and so on. So let's look at those aspects as well. So in terms of policy, it's not only about government. We must also help ourselves.
Building
Thank you.
capacity for the creative in an entrepreneurial sense, and then also collaboration so that we can do bigger things together. Dr. Ode, I'll come back to you, but Mr. Joseph Sapong is ready now. Joseph, can you hear me?
Yes, Apioko, I can hear you. Good evening.
There we go. Good evening. We're glad to have you with us this evening. Thank you for making the time.
Thank you very much. Unfortunately, I couldn't join you at the British Council Hall because I had to be at the stakeholders engagement where we have all the states, enterprises, the CEOs and boards preparing for a meeting tomorrow. And I'm chairing the committee. My apologies.
I hope they're getting ready to help the performing arts.
Yes. It's important we have this discussion, especially at this time that a lot of politicking is going on and various stakeholders are gathering their acts to put together a political message for the country that will determine our going forward. And it is good we are having this conversation now. The creative arts, the performing arts must find its voice within the discussions we are having. So it's good we are having it. Dada Chairman, distinguished panelists, ladies and gentlemen, I would situate my discussions within the socioeconomic potential and value that the creative arts and the performing arts can generate for this country. As someone working with SIGA, with the focus to generate returns and also efficiency for the state, I see it as a blessing in disguise if the state is able to put together a framework that will be able to tap into the many potentials and the talents that the other panelists have talked about that we have in abundance. Most of them don't even have the trainings required, but they are still doing something. So if we're able to put together a framework that would be well structured, structure the industry, provide the finance sources, provide opportunity for government to be able to give us the needed infrastructure and even provide the educational curriculum that would help develop the various talent required. That will help us get somewhere. You notice that even though we are performing and we are actually within the space, the current challenge we are having is that most of our artists, most of our performers are not able to break a certain notch, not because they don't have the talent, but they don't have the entrepreneurial skills, they don't have the final cutting edge skills that will help them propel them to the global level. And if you look at the statistics that we have put together, as was mentioned by the early speaker, UK in 2014, actually 2024, sorry, actually generated about 126 million pounds from the creative arts, employing about 2.4 million people. We have a lot of youth with potential, with the energy to occupy this space, and it is important government comes in to do it. And for government to be able to do it, it requires that we have the data. And as was alluded to earlier, we don't need to start very big. We can use the existing institutions that we have. We have the Creative Arts Agency, we have the National Film Authority. These are institutions that have already been established. And once we are able to integrate and build synergies with them, they should be able to help us come out with the data. And I believe SIGA is ever ready to join, because if SIGA is looking at the state interest, then it's important we pursue it, and together with all the other stakeholders ensure that we have the needed framework to be able to support that. It's quite a challenge when government has to come in and provide the support. If you are providing the support and you don't have the structures to be able to do that, it leads a lot of conflict. It brings about a lot of issues. I think we've heard about instances where various governments have tried to even facilitate for some of these sectors to get funding, and the accountability element of it becomes a challenge. And so we have National Theatre, we have Ghana Tourism Authority, we have Ghana Tourism Development Company, we have the Creative Art Agency, we have the National Film Authority. All these agencies are good agencies that we can start with, so that at this stage, we don't need to establish a new authority, but we can leverage on the existing institutions, integrate their effort, and come up with a document that can help us. And for us to be able to do that, we also need the creative arts leaders and also the performers within the space to also come out to join the effort. As the last speaker said, it shouldn't be a top-down approach. It should be a bottom-down, lateral, vertical kind of approach, where all of us will come together and have a document that would help us, not just to be on the shelf, but to help us implement it. This is what I'll say in my preliminary comments. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Mr. Sakwa. We'll come back to you shortly, but let me come to Dr. Odoy. I mean, you have a very interesting story because, I mean, you've not really worked in a quintessential sense in the cultural space, right? But you have a love for it, and you said, I'm going to do something about it in the way that I can. I mean, how do you think that we can, as creatives, because, you know, I mean, business people will put their money where they see a possibility for return, right? Let's be honest. If there are no profitability prospects, most likely, unless you want to run a charity, that's not going to happen. So how do you think that, I mean, from what experience, from what you've done as artists, as performing artists for that matter, what do you think we need to be doing to be able to catch the attention of people like you who didn't grow up with music as their alter ego, but who, just with the right spark of attention, may be able to say, you know what, I'm going to set up that grant, or I'm going to invest in that musician or that dancer?
Thank you very much. I think the first thing is, to be able to identify the right people, and when you say right, it's not just the how creative you are, but also it has to come with a mindset. You've got to have the discipline and the ambition in appropriate measure to be able to make it. I remember, when we started having Hip Life, it didn't. There was a lot of criticism, but it's, look, let the music come out. Let it come out as it is. It'll evolve, and just support while this evolution is taking place. So it's, those who you help, encourage, and connect them to the more established artists. I wish there would be way more collaboration between the younger ones and the older ones. If there was, and there was a way of facilitating this on a certain scale, I think it really would help. So there is that. There's then also how you can spot talent, and that's something I think we should look at in the coming years. And also, like you said, sponsorship, grants, how to access them, how to be able to apply them properly. And by that I mean, if you're doing it, you've got to make sure there is a process which is transparent and which ensures that due process is, and I believe something like this, we should do more. Get other people on board. I know there are other facilities that offer live music. There's Gold Coast, there's Zen Garden, there's Jam Rock, there's, other places. And I'm sure getting more and more together will definitely help.
All right, so at this point, we're going to bring in the audience. Oh, you didn't clap for Dr. Ojai. Where are the performing artists here? He's actually just giving you a lot of keys as to how to get the attention of people who can help us go to the next level. Okay, so we're going to open it up to the audience now. Please, can you make your submissions in 60 seconds so we can get as many as possible in? Very important. So whether it's a question or a comment, please, 60 seconds. You can come back later, when there's more to eat. All right? So who wants to go first? All right, I see your hand right there. Yes? Yes, you. Yes. Yes, please come to the mic. Yes. Round of applause for her. Is it on? There we go.
Got it. Yeah, hi. Good evening, Apioko. Good evening, panelists and ladies and gentlemen. So my question is based on what Prof. Sutherland Addy mentioned about the building of the hubs, especially with the research needed for our creative industry. I'm wondering whether we can start doing something like this from University of Ghana, because I know we already have the Information Studies Department as well as the Department of Theatre Arts. So is that something that we can start doing independently, or does it also have to go through some sort of red tape? Thank you.
Thank you. So let's take two more before we start answering. Okay, there was a hand over here. Okay, gentleman at the back, and then you can come as well. So at the back first, and then, yes. Please, let's clap for them.
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
My name is Nana Efum Berima. First, I want to say this. Our mommy, doctor, said that we should project and support our crafts. So I'm making all the creative art fraternities here aware that the National Theatre has given opportunity to the upcoming productions to also exhibit their talent at the Folks Place, which happens at the last Wednesday of every month. And today is not the last Wednesday of this month. That's why we are all here. And we are appealing that any time that the National Theatre meets the producers on that particular project, the major problem is publicity. So we are appealing that as we are all here and making sure that we make a better future for the creative arts, we are appealing that right from here, you see the programs manager for National Theatre so that he can put you on all the platforms so that you can also help us push it on every platform that you are. Now, second thing is, it is very difficult for we, the upcomers, to get logistics. Like maybe you need a police unit for a police vehicle, guns. You write a letter, you do the follow-up several times. You won't get the logistics. And you become fed up and give up. So we are appealing, the National Film Authority, please, if there is a way that you can direct us so that we have the logistics easy, so that we can also come up with whatever art piece we want to do, please help us. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much, and thank you so much for giving me this opportunity. What I want to say is that I've been in the industry for quite some time now, and what I've noticed is that those at the top don't put value on the performing arts. I mean, it is very clear. Now, such a beautiful program like this, when I turn my back, those that can help and support, they are not here. And such programs have happened on many occasions. We come, gather, and talk about our problems, our issues. But at the end of the day, nothing happens. I can assure you, without any doubt, that give ourselves 5 years to come. What we are discussing here, would we be able to receive or see any results after we have discussed whatever problems that we are facing? I think that it's about time they put value on the performing arts. At first, when you see somebody going to school of performing arts, they think that we don't have knowledge, we don't have, excuse my language, we don't have sense, and we can't do anything. But like the analysis that my former director or producer said, that when it comes to performing arts, it can generate a lot of money for the economy. All right? So I'm pleading with all of us that what if it will take maybe demonstration, if that is what you want, we come together. And there is division in the performing arts. It's about time we come together and then we can move forward. Thank you so much.
Thank you. So we'll take our next round of questions and comments after we've heard from the panel on what has just been asked. But the last gentleman, I just want to tell you that there's a reason why this is being organized by the National Theatre of Ghana. So we've made a lot of progress in that regard. That's the difference. Not individual. This is the whole National Theatre of Ghana, which is mandated by the people of Ghana, by the Constitution of Ghana, to ensure that we promote, project, and develop the performing arts. So that's a step in the right direction. So I think you should give a round of applause to the National Theatre. All right. You want to start?
Okay, maybe I'll say a few things, but I'll start from where Doc left off, because you asked him how he could support or how creatives should position themselves and so on. No, it's because this industry, the creative industry in Ghana is not developed. Because there should be producers, there should be managers, and so on. So sometimes it's not, creatives by their very nature don't tend to be business people, okay? Because for them to be who they are, I think business sometimes can detract, although it can be both. So, but in the early stages like now, it makes sense that you are able to combine everything. So that's why entrepreneurial skills is important. But as we develop, it should become differentiated. And that's why I go back to my top-down, bottom-up. So the top-down is where we need a policy. If I'll go back to that research, it's key. So Ben, don't despair. You know, some of us who are students of history, things happen after a very long time of pushing. It's not only about demonstrations; it's about continuous talk like this can also change it. But the top-down is when, if we do the research, for instance, then there are entrepreneurs who are not necessarily creatives. If they see there's opportunity in the creative industry from that research, they'll go in there. I used to attend the Abuja Film Festival. The Nigerians know that already. So if you go to a typical Nigerian film festival, you see about 20% of the attendees are banks. The UBAs and things, they are there. And they are actually pitching to the creatives because they know. That's why they are where they are now. So we can get there. But the bottom up is what I'm talking about, the collaboration, the entrepreneurial skills and things. And then associations. Okay, we don't tend to work together. Oliver, I say, for the past 25 years, we've been organizing all manner of associations. Producers Guild, Writers Guild, these entities should be strong so that, for instance, the producer who's looking for the props from the police and so on, if you have strong guilds and things, it's easy to be able to make these things happen without necessarily going to the NFA and so on. So we need many more of these structures. All of them need not be done by the government. Those of us down here should also help ourselves, and then we meet elsewhere. Like I said, that's the beauty of democracy. We should be careful not to leave all the things that must be done to government. It's dangerous. Okay, we must also help ourselves, and then we meet somewhere. Sometimes the government people will take things seriously when they say it's happening already. Okay, so that's my short one on that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Prof, I don't know if you want to take this one about the hubs and the possibility of going to, say, the University of Ghana, looking at the Info Studies Department, Theater Arts Department. We have the acting dean of the School of Performing Arts here. Prof, please wave. Yes. We should pass it on to Prof. Okay, Prof says we should pass it on to you. So can we please have a microphone for Professor Mana Esiedu? A round of applause for her, please.
This is really not fair, but I'm not too sure. I was asking the lady what exactly she was asking about hubs for the creative arts. Is that it?
So my question was based on a comment that Prof. Sutherland Addy made about how it's easy, relatively easy for us to make innovation hubs. In order to gather the research that we need, the way that Mr. Boidi was able to show research about the impact of the creative industry on the economy, that it's relatively easy for us to replicate that in Ghana as well. So my question was, I know at University of Ghana we have information studies and theater arts, so could that be a place that we could start? Or do we have to do it top down? Using government policy, which maybe will take too long, and there's a lot of paperwork and red tape. So,
well, actually, after the presentation, I was asking a colleague of mine who is actually doing research in the creative industries, and she's had some publications in that area. So I was asking if they don't probably already have the data that we're asking for. I think sometimes the problem with the academics is sometimes we do the research and it sits in our libraries and on our shelves and doesn't get translated into where it should be. And so maybe that's a challenge to us to make sure that the things we find out from our research goes out there. And I think right now the UG is making that effort. Often people's new research or people who give lectures are also encouraged to go on radio and talk about their research and disseminate the information that they have found. So that certainly is possible. I don't even know if that answers your question. Yeah,
Partly.
okay.
No, but I mean, Prof, thank you for that. So we would like to see some of that research and maybe any other that has been done. And we should start, collating it. At least those of us in the media, we can do our bit by giving platform for some of these things to
be
out.
discussed.
Yes, I mean,
certainly.
lately we've had the nutritional facts. A couple of weeks ago, some of our colleagues went to hear what had been done with STEM and how we are using recycled material to recreate digestive systems in our basic schools and whatnot, so that we don't have to spend money that we don't have on importing expensive science kits and all that. So if we can see the creative arts research as well, and we're ready to put it out there, then let's do that. So that we also know where the gaps are. Yes, but Professor, did you want to add anything?
Well,
to that?
just to quickly say that I think some of the things, it's because we work in silos, and sometimes, it's possible, for example, to seed an idea to say, the ISA, for example, and say, why don't you also add, to the areas that you are looking at, the creative economy. It's possible that that just hasn't occurred to people because the creative economy is not mainstreamed. So I think that there needs to be better dialogue, and we need to do some more lobbying. Somebody was lamenting that, we don't have the people who should be listening to us here. It becomes necessary to take ourselves over to them and say, you have to listen to us now. That's part of the reason why we set up the Ghana Culture. We felt that it was necessary for creatives, to get together and make themselves heard. So I think that there is no need to despair. We need to know that we have a lot of power in our numbers and in our capacity to say things to people in power, and we just haven't exercised it sufficiently. I mean, it doesn't mean being aggressive, but it means showing up and supporting each other. Unfortunately, somehow we haven't formed a cohesive enough community, and we shan't. Maybe that should be for another occasion where we form a more cohesive community that rises above the divisions of partisan politics and so on and so forth. It needs to, I think right now my problem is that I feel that that we're wasting time, working in partisan things and so on. As in the area of culture, if we need to support creatives, we need to support creatives. How are we going to do that? And we need to work together in order to get that done. So for me, those are some of the things that are of importance. But as far as the hubs are concerned, really, it's a question. It could happen, as I said, it could happen in the National Commission. It could happen in the ministry. It could even happen in the theater. You have a desk that just concentrates on fishing out information. And so that, a creative person doesn't have to go wandering all over the place to see, where are the places that I can, play live music. You go there and they can tell you that they're this 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, these are their numbers. Those are the sorts of things. I really don't think that it's rocket science. Yeah.
Thank you.
And Napelo, can I just add one more thing?
Yes, of course.
I think that even within the cultural industry, sometimes we tend to work against each other rather than work together. The National Commission on Culture is here, the National Theatre, the Ghana Film Authority, we are so splintered. And I guess that's why the Ghana Cultural Forum saw a need to come into existence. But even that, we are not working together all the time. you know, I don't want to go into great detail, but recently I was quite disheartened when one branch wanted to do something and the other branch was going to charge so much that it was almost impossible for them to work together. I mean, that shouldn't happen. If our aim is the same, you know, to promote the performing arts and to build our culture and our creative industry, then we should be seen to be working together, collaborating, rather than working against each other or being in competition with each other. That shouldn't be the case.
Thank you, Prof. Let's take another round. Okay.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I would just start from where Madam landed. The question is, are we, I'm Phil Richardson, Comey with the National Commission on Culture. Are we united as creatives in terms of policy direction in the first place? Because just as Antisi said, now political parties are discussing manifestos, and in the industry, the political parties are led by creatives who are already divided on what should be the direction for the creatives. So what is really the policy direction? For the creatives themselves, are we united? Now, the discussion we are having here, I was also wondering about the National Theatre's own story. What has been the policy challenges since the 1990s? If we do not have data on the contributions of the performing arts to development, that politicians and policymakers are confused, at least, what about the achievement and data of the National Theatre? Must National Theatre also struggle to get the attention of government? Because at least they can tell their own story. Now, Antiosi started the submission with the concert party and the issues that Bob Santo and others were raising. These are the achievement of the National Theatre since the 1990s. And the records are there for policymakers. So National Theatre should not be struggling to convince any politician or policymaker about their contributions to nation building. I think what we are doing here is putting the two together as to profit-making creative enterprises and what the National Theatre and other agencies are doing for nation building. If we want to overburden organizations like the National Theatre, the Centers for National Culture, to tell government how much they are bringing to them before investment, we are going to collapse our society. Because it is the National Theatre that is going to do what the businessman will not want to do. They will want to go to the schools, and how much are you going to earn from presenting a play, presenting an oral tradition or something to school children, and make money from that to government? Is that what we expected the National Theatre to do? That they should now be a profit-making machine and stop educating our young children about our traditions and our culture? Is that what we're expecting? So these are really the serious public policy issues we need to look at in terms of the performing art. Who is making sure that our rituals, our festivals, our naming ceremonies, and the rest are preserved for generations yet unborn? And if we tell them they should be busy making money, who will be doing that? That is what we need to be thinking about. So the state position on income generation must also tie in with the responsibility of these existing state agencies in terms of nation building. Let National Theatre tell its story. At least the Centers for National Culture tell their story, at least, and it should be the beginning before we look at the broader data collection or whatever. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
My name is Divine Kwame Uswansa, and I'm from the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture. So just a little bit of information that I wanted to give from the comments of Prof. Regarding the operations of the agencies under the ministry, some overlapping each other. Just to let you know that since the current Honorable Minister was confirmed as the Minister for Tourism, Arts and Culture, with his background, one of the first things he did was to look at the various legislative instruments setting up the agencies under the ministry. And it was realized that most of them were doing virtually the same thing. And some of them too, there wasn't even the need for them to be set up. For instance, if you take the National Film Authority and the Creative Arts Agency, we don't see the reason why the National Film Authority shouldn't be merged with the Creative Arts Authority. So he has put together a team of lawyers, of seasoned and experienced practitioners and civil servants to examine the LI. They submitted a report about a week ago. There were a few issues with them, so he's charged them to go back to have them addressed, after which it will be submitted to Cabinet, and he wants it to be submitted to Cabinet. He wants it to be submitted to Cabinet for it to be approved, so that it will go to Parliament, for it to be passed before the term of the current Parliament elapses. So the team is working so hard to make sure that activities, at least the legal frameworks, we get it right, and then we'll take it up from there. So that's the little information that I wanted to give.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay. My name is Yao Osufrimpong. I used to be part of the business school, Legon. I'm interested in the performing arts, not because I'm a performer myself, but I'm interested in music. Because I think music holds the performing arts together. It's like the glue. If you are in dance, if you are in the theater, you need music. See? So when I decided to get into music, I established a recording studio, and I get a lot of musicians coming to my studio. So I want to make an appeal to the panelists to pay attention to music. Now, my other observation is that there is competition amongst the agencies under the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture. Several of them. I was looking at the budgetary allocation to the various sectors of the economy, and I saw that the Ministry of Tourism, Arts and Culture probably gets the least. See? And it looks like all the agencies are competing for the same resources, about 13 of them. When you look at the functions, you realize there is also duplication of functions. We looked at the folklore board, looked at tourism. They're trying to organize festivals, and everybody is trying to have a documentation on festivals on Ghana. So my observation here again is that let's put the resources in the agencies where they are needed the most. That's what I think we have to do.
Okay.
Now, talking about the National Theatre, my other observation is that
Sir,
when I went to the National Theatre, I saw a statue.
Sir, we need to move on.
A statue.
We need to move on.
In front of the National Theatre. Who is that statue? Somebody playing drums. And I was saying to myself, why can't we put the Ghana Bus statue here? Instead of, who is that person playing the drums there? Who is he? So that's my observation. Yeah, if you give me time, I'm going to talk plenty. So please.
Thank you. Okay.
All right.
Thank you very much. My name is Niai. So I research in destination storytelling and also in creative arts marketing. Currently doing a paper with one of my colleagues in Nigeria on the title Africa's Creative Frontier, the Business, Fashion, Music, and Film Production. Coming back to the issue of data, it's a major problem. If I write and produce plays, if I'm going to speak to a producer to give me money, he wants data. How many people are going to come? The last years, let's go back, how many productions were done at the place you're going to do your production? I think that the National Theatre should do better. Every year you have several productions that take place at the National Theatre. You've not released a data that shows the number of people that have come to watch the show this year, the number of people who showed up, how much money you generated, and so on and so forth. Academics can use this data to write papers. GTA used to have the same problem. When we are writing papers, we have to depend on WTO, World Tourism and Travel Council, all these other places to get data. These people come to our country to research on us, to give us data to write papers. Meanwhile, we are here talking about policies and all, and it's heartbreaking that when you go to National Theatre right now, ask them, how many productions have you done in a year? How many people came to watch the production? What value was generated from it? It's a problem. So I think that maybe the issue of data should start from our home. National Theatre should start gathering data. You should be able to release quarterly data, or maybe, I don't know, quarterly or yearly. Every year you should be able to put some powerful statistics together with some graphics and everything to show the production houses that have done productions, the number of people who came to watch, and so on and so forth. And this can actually direct policy. So for me, this is my contribution.
Okay. Thank you. Soros.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My name is Clement Ashite. I'm a performing artist.
That's your name?
Yeah, that's my name. You have another name for me?
No, it's fine. Please proceed.
Yeah. My first issue is with the AC. I mean, it's too cold in here. And yeah, they are all saying it. But it looks like nobody's talking because when you go to the National Theatre, there's no AC for you to enjoy it. So we are all soaking it. And that's one bad thing with the National Theatre. To think that, please, who said that? To think that we are having such an important meeting and we can't even have it there, and we have to move here. I don't understand the concept of it. I think that we have a place, beautiful place, National Theatre. There are so many auditoriums. We could have had this, and it would have been all okay like we are having it here. That's one. The second thing is, our panelists, I've seen Doctor, I've seen Prof, I've seen our big man. I was thinking that we could have the young ones who are also vibrant in the industry right now, the performing artists who are making it, so that they can also impact to us how they are making it, how they are making the industry grow for them and all that. But we're not having them. We are stuck to finding data when we cannot find it, and we have the human beings who are actually doing it. So I think we should the main one is in October, right? I will plead that if we could have some of these dancers who are making it worldwide, some of these musicians, all the Black Cherries and Sakuras, they are all part of us. They are not separate people, and we are Dondo players and dancers, Adwa dancers. No, we are all one. It's performing art. And then my third one is the theme of the, please, I'm trying to make it all 1 minute. I've done 30 seconds. My third one, which is most important to me, is the theme of today's meeting or seminar. It says the rich performing art, the role of policy, public policy. Maybe because I've been feeling cold, I didn't hear the policies we talked about and the roles they are playing. So if our panelists can quickly put them in front. Thank you very much.
All right, anyone else? Let's take one more. Is there anyone online? Okay, please, let's hear from those online, and then we'll come to Nana. Please, Nana.
No, I'm a civilian. So.
Yes, you're a civilian. For now. Jackson. Jackson, can you hear us? Hello, Jackson, can you hear us? Jackson, can you hear us?
Wait, we'll read what I think he typed.
He typed it in the
Yeah.
chat. Okay, please read it for us.
So,
Should I come back to you?
yes, please.
Okay, I'll come back to you. Nana.
Thank you. So it's important that I establish that this is not a bashing match against the National Theatre. This is a way to tell you that the National Theatre is supposed to be, I think Prof alluded to that. It's something she and I talk about it. In finding ways to mobilize everybody in the space to come together, to avoid this individualistic approach to doing things, and I'm doing this on my own and all of that. Because that's what the industry is suffering. By the way, we have brand new air conditioners. They are being installed. But more importantly, but more importantly, we need to understand something. And I think Apioko did that in establishing who the National Theatre is. The National Theatre is not that building, there on its own. It's not about the infrastructure alone. It's about the talents and skills out there that we're supposed to hone. That's why we're asking you to help us make an argument to the system that this is a treasure. We need to understand that. You're demanding data and all that. Come and find out whether we have the resources. And maybe you'd rather support us to ask for it. And that's what we're talking about. In my experience as a board chairman, I haven't hidden this. I've made it very public. And I'm saying this knowing that I'm a very partisan person. But this has nothing to do with that. It has to do with paying attention to this treasure that we have. At every point in time, as far as I've understood, we're always at the bottom of the ladder in terms of considerations. And that's why we're mobilizing you to come together. Let's all think it through. Let's come up with the kind of things we think should go into some kind of document or whatever it is that is going to help build this sector. That's what we're talking about. So as for the complaints that will come on the table, not only about National Theatre, but about the arts and all of that, we all know that. And while we express it, let us add the progressive approach, getting the statistics, getting the data, figuring out what kind of a budget will support a non-profit approach to building the sector, so that a child in Bukum or in Chebi can access a violin and bring out that skill that they have that will make them the greatest. I mean, we're talking about treasures hidden because we're not focusing on doing some of these things. And that's what we're here for. So please, as for the problems, they are there. And we need you to support us to fight for solving them. Trust me. It isn't that we have incompetent people there. It is that the resourcing must come. And sometimes when the players are scattered, if I go there, and I'm sure Divine will bear me out, I don't spare people. But what does it matter if when I turn my back and there's nobody there to support what I'm fighting for? So let's not be doing that. Let's get together and figure out how to resolve this. There was talk about a year from now, 2 years from now, we won't find it. This thing we call annual conference, this is the first time it's happening. We've named it annual conference so that my term as
in office ends at the end of this year. And I cannot be chairman again. The next team that comes, it is for us as a collective to make sure that we have a conference every year so we can come and deal with the issues as they come and project the future and ask for things. At the National Theatre, and I'll make this my last point until the next time, one of the things, I've had 2 lives at the National Theatre, 1 term and this is the 2nd term. In our 1st term, we actually held an event and said, look, we would like to raise 50 million cedis to put in a fund to support the performing arts. Ask me whether we've gotten a kobo. And you see, it's not about whether government should give us that money. It's about whether we've built an environment that makes the Ghanaian public appreciate what the performing arts can do for us. And that's why we have the theme, we have value for this conference. So please, let's be focused on bringing forward solutions that will solve our problems. As for the building, the National Theatre, those ones, they are there, and we should solve them. In fact, I'm hoping that we'll build one theatre in Chebi too. It will come up with problems too. When it's your turn, you can say some for your town. That's fine. But my point is, I hope my point is down, that ultimately there are thousands of talent out there, opportunities out there that we're blowing because we're not paying attention to this matter. And that's why we're here today. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Okay. Online.
So let me take, yes. Online. Oh, online.
So from Kuntu Blankson to Professor Sutherland. Performing arts industry or theater is symbols to rectify the problem in our society and project sound morals and values. How does performing arts industry help fight galamsey, especially in communities where there are no enabling environment or infrastructure for people living there to bring out the best in them? That's from Kuntu Blankson, Professor Sutherland.
Okay, is there anything else from online? No, okay, please.
Good evening, honorable people.
Good evening.
My name is Abraham Abakan. My stage name is Bobby Fija. I'm a performing artist, a composer in the music, which is Musicians Union of Ghana. I hereby stand or represent my president as well, Mr. Bisa Simons. This shirt I'm wearing is our small business, beginning business in the art industry. My question is, in case you've gotten an international platform, event platform, which you can invite them from Europe to Ghana, maybe to National Theatre for performance, in terms of tickets and the performance, everything, whom am I going to contact for everything to move on?
So you want to know if you're going to organize an event at the National Theatre with an international group. You want to know whom to contact. And okay, so we'll answer that for you, please. Yes. Okay. We're wrapping up, so this will be the last one, then we'll come back to the panel.
All right, thank you very much. Good evening. My name is Ruben Brian Lumoti. I would want to speak a little growing up as a young boy acting back in primary. I have known National Theatre as one institution that promotes culture. I quite remember one day there was a program at the National Theatre, and then I was dressed in a tie and dye, up and down. When I got there, they gave me a cowbell ludi, and I didn't know what it was. So later I was told it was because of my dressing they gave me that. Coming back to the main issue, the creative arts industry is a very big space where the country needs to really pay attention to. I most often want to make my submissions based on my experiences I have had. back in 2018 where we had Afro Nation at Laboma. Then I was using a motorbike and picking the traffic. The place was all jammed up, and then picking people from one location to the other. It's even fetched me some money. So it's a very big space where the country and then our leaders really needs to put some focus on, because it brings some value and then it softens the lives more. Because I can tell you that when those events are being organized, those are the times our mothers who sell pure water and then ice water make the most sales, because the numbers coming together at a particular grounds increases their sales. So it's one industry we are really pleading that all various stakeholders should come together and then make it stand well. If we could get a general institution, like one body, to host all the various institutions. I don't know if that could be done, because I'm hearing this, I'm hearing that, and it's like most of them are performing their functions on different angles. So we are pleading they should come together and then make things go on well. And then talking about data, about some few weeks ago, there has been some brouhaha on the internet about Stonebwoy and Shatawale and then Samini and them about some article that was written by the Grammys, and it became a whole lot of blow up. So we are pleading people should come together, and then what needs to be done should be done. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you very, very, very much. All right, let me come back to the panel. We need to wrap this up. Oh, there's one more hand. Okay, but it has to be brief, please. Brief and final.
Good evening. Please, my name is Francis Tetanutako. I work with Superfarm, and I was sent here by my CEO.
Sorry, you work with?
Superfarm Network.
Superfarm, okay.
They provided my transportation for today. Please, before I came, the topic, public policy, I was told that if I come, I should come and talk about taxation affecting creatives in the space. So far, we've not mentioned, or maybe I have not heard any policy. So please, if the panel can recap on that, and then when you are doing that, they should also add. Like I'm saying, I have not heard anything, so I can't bring my idea yet. So please, if they can recap on the policies we've discussed here, because it looks like we are all over the place. Everybody is talking about something interesting to them. So please, the public policy. Because if I go back to the office, they will ask me. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, back to our panel.
All right, thank you very much. Once again, Nana, let's commend you for putting this together. And say this is the inaugural one. And I'll tax you. I'm sure you will come back for the closure to tell us what you intend to do with this gathering, and then what you're going to do in October. And I hope in October you really bring the heavyweights around the table as well. So, I mean, we've got video and so on. So, now for Suarez and the rest who are looking for policy, Kelvin, if you go up there, you see I made some policy intervention. Because of time, we move very quickly. But it's not exhaustive. I think there are about 6 or 7. These days, when you go into the internet, you don't have to reinvent the wheel. I found all this by research. So the guy who says people will ask you, just go and Google, you are looking for policy, you'll find plenty. So you don't, listen, no, but it's important, because we don't have to reinvent the wheel. You read about what pertains in the US, what pertains in Kenya, South Africa, and so on. And then, although we don't have data, then you can make some inferences, and then you can postulate some things. That's how it's done. So you've got that one here. Okay. Now, but in my recap, again, I share the frustration of all the young guys who are saying that what's happening, because it's like a no-brainer. Recently, when I happened to be at the forum when the vice president was pitching, and I was telling him that, you guys, look, you don't do research. You know, your economists and all the rest of it, there was a low-hanging fruit. For instance, we say buy Ghana and all the rest of it. It's the creatives that will make that become possible. Because we like to go to Abroche and other places. Why? Because we see the films, we see the skyscrapers, we see the culture, we love it. Ghana is such a great address. Center of the world, you got the history, very deep history, very colorful festivals, very rich people, rich culture, everything. It's the creatives who will sell it out there in many ways. And then we'll get tourism. I mean, the UK and all the rest of it, South Africa especially, they piggyback on the creatives to ensure their tourist industry grows and is making them billions. So, I mean, our real riches is not the gold and other things that's lying on the ground. The real riches is our very deep culture and our very smart people. So let's invest in this creative economy. And I'll re-emphasize, it's all about the research and the data, because it should be data-driven. So it's not just talk. Facts speak for themselves. So, Nana, please, talk to the ministers and so on, tell them to be up and doing, because there's a big sector that they have just crashed. They haven't even gone in there. And the stats are showed from South Africa. If you know South Africa, the kind of agriculture they do there is very high level, yet the creative economy there surpassed agriculture. So that's food for thought. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Prof.
Thank you very much. I think I'll start on a note. I think Suarez, I hope that I'll be useful until I die. So I think that you should, while I'm here, listen to me, because I could be gone anytime, yeah? So it's important for us to have a platform. I think I agree with you that our platforms should be intergenerational, so that was just a quick point there. I mean, we could also be quiet and then we let you make your own mistakes, but I don't think that's a very positive way to live. All right, so that's a first thing. But secondly, people are saying they didn't hear about policy. I think what we were tasked to do is to talk about the role of public policy. What can public policy do? So we've spent a lot of time trying to share the sort of things that public policy can do. And what we are trying to say is that somewhere in this country, there should be a coordination, a framework, so that people have reference points to go to for what they need. There should be a system of laws, regulations, supportive institutions, right? And what we were trying to say is that, in fact, we have them, but are they properly resourced is the question that we have. So what we need, and I think what Mr. Usu was trying to say in terms of taking a good look at the ones that exist and seeing whether they have been enabled to play the roles that they are supposed to play, or whether we should cut back on some and so on and so forth. I hope that you've done a lot of interaction, with the stakeholders, so that you don't get into problems about collapsing some and not and all that. But I think that needs to be discussed. So that's why we approached it in this way. There's a cultural policy that exists from 2004, where if you look in that policy, there are many, some of these issues that we are talking about are there. It's online. Is it online, Mr. Usansa? Yes, the cultural policy, the 2004 one. Yes. Now there's a new one that should be out within the next few months that builds on that and expands on it. So there'll be a document that you can look at. But I would want to say that we want to see a cultural, cultural policy affecting all sectors and letting all sectors reflect their understanding of this. And for this, I think something that I have not said is that it's possible, Nana, that it's going to be important to now do targeted interactions. So you have your financial institutions, a number of banks or whatever it is, and sit down with them with this and get to brass tacks to try and find out what is preventing them from supporting the performing arts and so on. I think that now we need to go from the broad, into looking at the basics. The gentleman who asked about tickets and so on, that's exactly what I was trying to talk about. How can a person like that go somewhere where somebody can tell them what to do? Somebody who can hold their hand and walk them through. Somebody who knows about what happens in the international circles and can support. I think that this is extremely important. And if somebody wants to make some money, they should set up for that. Now, in terms of the this Galamsey thing, I see the baiting that's going on, but I think it's important for us to recognize that when you turn on a radio station, some of the radio stations have been promoting some kind of public position. All of us, we should take a position on Galamsey. What they do, for example, is to use music. If you realize that they choose particular types of songs which they play, that speak to these issues. I was talking about the concert party. They are there. There's so many different ways in which you can enter into a community and strike, at people's hearts in such a way that the questioning will be there. So I think that there's no question that the performing arts, can play their role. Is George Quay here? No. To take the opportunity to make a quick plug, because in 2 weeks' time, the focusing on the plays. It's going to be focusing on plays written by Efua Sutherland. And this, because she would have been 100 years if she had been alive. So there are a series of plays that are going to be performed by various theater groups that will help us to get to know her once again and to know her work once again. And so these are the sorts of things that the theater is doing, which people don't, tend to recognize as being their contribution to, to our heritage and also to our future. But Phil, I think I want to end up by saying that pushing you guys a little bit to make sure that you have a mindset that says, let us also earn some income. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. What is a problem is to say that you are defined as income generating institutions and that you will be, the work that you will be judged, you do will be judged by how much money you earn. So, but I want us to get away from, the complacency of just saying government must give us everything. I think that's also a problem. But thank you very much. Yeah.
Prof. Dr. Odoy, and then, okay, Joseph is on standby. Great.
I think the submissions have been great. We've had a lot of great questions. I wouldn't have much more to add, but just to say I'm happy to have been here this evening, and thank you once again. And I'm available anytime. I'd be more than happy to make a push. And I did read about the new report coming out, and I can't wait to see it. Thank you.
Okay. Joseph, are you there?
Yes, Apioko, I'm here.
Great. Over to you, please.
All right, so I'll start by saying that there is a state ownership report that SIGA publishes online. When you go into the report, you see SIGA is trying to put out data on the performance of some of our institutions, National Theatre and the rest. And you would see that the approach is not on profitability, but efficiency and how we can support them to implement their public policy function. So you have both operational and financial reports in them. Now, in talking about our rich value from the performing art, what we're actually saying is that it's actually a gold mine. If we want to depend on government alone, it will not work. We need to put together a framework that would protect your copyright interests to the extent that if someone is even using your work, you can benefit from it. You will notice that even within our legal setup, there isn't so much experts who are going into copyright law. And these are things that we are saying once you have a policy framework, you are able to push people to go in there because they know the value that is being created there. Again, for somebody to invest in the performing act, they should know that they are also protected and their investment is going to also generate them some returns. So if there's going to be a PPP arrangement, all of these things should be captured in the policy. And again, for us to have a discussion with government to provide the needed infrastructure, you need data, you need to justify why it should be done. And if we have data to say that others are making $60 billion, 100 million shillings and all that, then it's a good platform to engage government, for government to also support us. So I'll end in saying that for us to be able to advocate, we should come together and we should be conscious and persistent about it. Use data, engage the right people, and ensure that they hear us and put together the framework that will support what we are doing to be able to generate the needed jobs and also the returns for ourselves. If we continue looking at performing acts from the social cultural point without looking at the economic part, we will still miss it. You cannot generate billions of CDs from the performing act only looking at government funding some of these operations. We should put together a framework that individuals and entities can support the work that we are doing. Thank you very much. We will continue this engagement from our various corteses. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Thank you. A round of applause for our panelists. They've been amazing. I think we can do better than that. Mr. Kwame Boydu, who is a film director and script writer, a celebrated one at that. To Mr. Joseph Sapong, who joined us via the internet as technology has made possible. He is with SIGA. As well, we have Professor Issy Sutherland Addy. She's a renowned sociologist. She's a professor with the Institute of African Studies at the University of Ghana, and many other things to her name. Dr. Adrian Odoy, president of the Ghana Club, director of the Plus 233 Jazz Bar and Grill, and also medical practitioner, owner of Akai House. Thank you all for joining us. And all of you who've been in the audience with us today, both present physically and online, thank you very much. I will just wrap up by saying there's a question about how you can run an event at the National Theatre, right? So let me answer for you, because I've done it many times myself. If you go to the National Theatre, there's a front of office, so sort of like a reception or a front desk. The lady who runs it is Senna here. She was here a little earlier. She's left. So you go, you see Senna, you make your inquiries, let her know the dates you're looking at. She'll let you know if they're available. And then, if you're looking for the National Theatre to partner you in terms of giving you the space, you'll have to write to the executive director of the theatre explaining why, this would make a good partnership, all right? So I think a lot of people don't realize that the National Theatre is not an event center like we keep saying, but it is a physical manifestation of a mandate to promote and push the arts. So do make a trip, go to the front office, and if you're looking to do this event soon, go now, because I'm sure a lot of the dates would have been taken by now, okay? And for anyone else who's looking to do anything like that. Again, I'll remind you that we have the annual conference of the Performing Arts 2024, the maiden edition. This is on the 2nd of October at the National Theatre, and on the 3rd, there'll be an awards ceremony for the performing arts as well. And then Suarez, Hi. Tell, and everybody here, tell young creatives to be interested in policy. We are not interested enough in policy. And where we are interested, many of us don't understand it. Let's make an effort to do that so that we get more seats at the table. It's important, very, very important. Let's not hide and say that, media, I just want to do my art. We should speak up for ourselves so that the people who are in the places where, we need them to act know that we know what we're talking about, we know what we're about, and we deserve to be paid attention to. All right, so ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to hand over to Nana to wrap up. While he comes up here, do remember, please, we want you to follow us on social media. There's the National Theatre of Ghana on Facebook, the National Theatre GH on Instagram, Theatre Ghana on X, and the National Theatre of Ghana on YouTube. Please go and follow. We also need to grow our theatre social media pages. It's important. You see what the Barbican is doing. They have large following. Carnegie Hall, they have a large following. We also need to follow our National Theatre on social media so we can also gain traction there. Very important. Nana, over to you.
Thank you very much, Apioko. I'll start off by thanking everybody on this panel. Moderator, Apioko. She owes me, so tonight she's going to pay. It's a dinner. She has to take me to dinner. I'm telling the world, so if I'm hungry, then they'll know you didn't feed me. I'm saying she owes me dinner, so tonight I'm collecting the dinner. Kwame, thanks a lot. We won't stop talking and we won't stop fighting. Mr. Bodi is a fighter. He fights for things. And I think that that's the attitude that we need. Once we're mobilized and we fight together, we'll get something. I think Kamala Harris has made the word fight a very popular thing these days. We fight, we win, yeah? Something like that. So, come, thanks for coming. Prof, I'm saving you for last. My doctor, thank you very much. We want to emphasize why we brought Dr. Odoe. You heard his background. He's been around for a long time. He's helped a lot of people in what is the performing arts in different ways. The only one, as far as I know, who has recorded, produced the National Symphony Orchestra. That's what I know. I stand to be corrected. A personality like that opens the way for a whole host of people into an industry that can be extremely successful. And so it's our pride to have had him this evening. Mr. Sapong, I don't know if you're still on there. The commitments that you subtly made will materialize before the end of this year, because we want clarity on who we are as a performing arts sector. And yes, we want it done in a manner that leaves everybody confident, especially there was a question raised about 5 years from now when we come, we'll probably be saying the same thing. Mr. Sapong, don't let us say the same thing next year, because it's ultimately about what the state institutions and government do or does for us to see progress. So thank you for joining us. I'm very grateful on behalf of the board.
Nana, very well, we were engaged.
Very good. And then my own professor. As for Prof, it's a family affair. So I can't say, but I'm sure everybody knows enough about Prof. So all I'm going to say is thank you. But I'm happy to proclaim to the world, there are two people in this room who I've relied on over the last how many years in being chairman of the board of the National Theatre. Mr. Fritz Baffo, I don't know whether he left, and the good professor. And so if I've made mistakes, please ask them. But I can tell you that I don't think there's one mistake that they have led me to. If anything at all, they veered me away from mistakes. And so, Prof, I want to tell the world I'm grateful to you. Brass tacks. As Apioko said, well, doing this as a prelude to a conference. This conference was supposed to be a 3-day conference where we would talk into detail about issues that affect every aspect of the performing arts. When I started, I read out some internet definition of the performing arts. When we come to Ghana, it's a lot more. It's more detailed, storytelling, and all of those things are there. Playing drums of all kinds, adowa and all of that. We're going to be missing out if we don't pay attention. And that's why we're here. So when we argue for the conference theme, that we have value, is to reinforce what the performing arts can do for Ghana, what it has done in the past and what it can do. When Professor Sidhu and others are teaching people out in the School of Performing Arts, when they graduate, they end up in banks and places like that. We're losing out on some real stuff. If you ask Kwame and Roverman and others, people who they work with work in banks and they are shop tellers, and today I met one, she's secretary to some director. It's not to say that those jobs are bad, but it's to say, what if we had built the industry in such a manner that people come in there and make the living that they can afford, so they focus and bring us their best. And that's what we're looking at. That's why we have this conference. Thank you all for coming. It's important to us that you all show up at the conference on October 2nd. The gentleman who talked about tax, I was encouraging you to speak because it wasn't about the panelists alone. The panelists did not come to say that they knew everything. They came to pave the way for a discussion. So I was hoping that you'd share your ideas. Luckily for you, it's not too late. We have the website, acpagh.org. We have an email address. You can put out a document, put it on there. We'll share it with the world. And we'll also discuss it at the conference. At the conference, there will be a workshop on those types of things. I'm particularly interested in taxation too, because I went to, pardon? The taxation matter. So when you come to the conference, then you tell us so that they can know. But the point is that it's important that we all understand all of these things and even contribute to what you're working on so that people appreciate where you started the work from. So that's what all of this is about. We're here to make friends and build a community of the performing arts, a movement that when you hear Prof speak, nobody will worry about her age, everybody will back her so that we can get something done. Yes, it's important that we recognize that. So thank you very much again. As for me, if you leave me, I'll talk. So God bless you all. See you on the 2nd of October and on the 3rd. And by the way, in between, remember to come and help celebrate Auntie Efua Sutherland. All the productions out there. Come with family and friends and share the word so they can all be there. Thank you very much. I forgot to mention Professor Simon Teusu.